Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good? That's right. The Boxing Sword Chicken in here with the Midweek Report, October 18th, 2023. And you know that I had to put in my take on the news that pretty much dropped, the other day, as it was basically official that the announcement was made by Paramount that they are shutting down Showtime Sports. Okay. And this is something that for folks that kind of like follow the sport or have been around social media, over the past few weeks or so, that this had been kind of like brought up, for a while. But with this note that had been dropped yesterday, basically on the uh, Sports Business Journal, that is basically the thing there that has really kind of, you know, put some shockwaves around the sport, so to speak, in reference to boxing. But, we wanted to kind of like delve into the actual story, kind of like get a couple of takes on this news, have my take on it, and in reference to, one thing in particular that a number of fight fans have brought up, and that is Premier Boxing Champions, because they were the banner presentation, or, the banner as far as like high profile fights that were taking place under Showtime Sports, right? But there's a lot more things that kind of like went into this here, and also this is not just Premier Boxing Champions that had been affected by this, but there's a number of other sporting things that were affected by this. So we're going to see if we could try to get into this here as well, man. I wanted to kind of like share that particular article, and then also something that actually was dropped last week in reference to this pending news. But I felt like it was a great article that broke down a number of things that have happened over the sport of boxing that kind of like say, hey, you have this going on, but you had other things in the background that folks, in the mainstream hadn't really pointed out. But it's just that, when it came to this news, everybody immediately pointed towards, certain people or whatnot. So I wanted to break it down. I wanted to give my take in, why it's pretty much more than, what what some would say is on the surface. You know what I'm saying? So this is the thing here, man. I wanted to, originally share this particular article, that was on there for Sports Business Journal, posted yesterday by John Oren. You had the thing there where it says, Paramount shutting down Showtime Sports, a brand that has been in existence for nearly 38 years. The move, which will happen by the end of the year, will lead to an undetermined number of layoffs, including Showtime Sports president Steven Espinoza, who has run Showtime Sports since 2011. Okay. When contacted about the move, Paramount Global released a statement: as we evolve our strategy to more efficiently allocate resources and align our content offering across the business, we made the difficult decision not to move forward with boxing and other content produced by the Showtime Sports team. Showtime will continue to air and support the remaining 2023 boxing slate and honor obligations through the end of the year. Now, Steven Espinoza had released a statement in reference to this, and it said that the company's decision is not a reflection of the work that we have done in recent years, nor of our long and proud history. Unfortunately, in a rapidly evolving media marketplace, the company has had to make difficult choices, allocating resources, resetting priorities, and reshaping its content offering. While today's news is certainly difficult and disappointing, it's entirely out of our control. And it says that, Paramount still owns the MMA company Bellator, but has been in the market trying to sell it for months. So, I mean, it kind of like shows you, man, like, hey, Paramount really isn't in the, I guess, the business of what I would say the combat sports, but sports in general, it seems like when it comes to Showtime, because when it comes to sports content, it's not just boxing in reference to also, and I know that I'm going to bring this up with Premier Boxing Champions, but you're also talking about the sports programming that they had. Who is it with? Steven Jackson. You had those shows also, and I'd say the other thing too, you got to think of Showbox, not just the thing with Showtime Championship Boxing, but you also had Showbox. And Showbox, that that was part of a lot of other promoters that were involved in the sport of boxing that put their fighters on those cards to showcase them on those cards. I mean, that's pretty much like back in the day when you had the old Tuesday night fights or something like that, or how they have like even right now with Pro Box, so to speak. Even though Pro Box is kind of like independent, there's no like real promoter or anything like that, so to speak, where it's like this promotions or something. But they showed or they showcased boxers that were coming up on the ranks, building their profile up, getting those fights in order to get to the next level. So you had, with Showbox, it was almost like, how they say, like a development league. He had fighters that were on Showbox that eventually became featured on Showtime Championship Boxing, and then ended up going on pay-per-view. But you have those particular instances where those fight cards are going to be really affected by this news of Showtime, kind of like eliminated, or Paramount eliminated Showtime Sports, you know. So when you talk about promoters like as I have featured on the Boxing Source multiple times, Dimitri Salita. Hopefully, I get him on here soon so he could talk about this. You had like Dimitri Salita. You might have somebody like Ludabella, at times. You might have other folks like Samson Lukowicz that could have fighters that could be on something like Pro Box. I mean, it's not just who he has coming up here with David Benavidez and Jose Benavidez Jr. He'll have a number of other fighters that could be featured on Pro Box on Showbox, right? So a lot of moving parts when it comes to this particular news of Showtime Boxing kind of closing their doors here, or Showtime Sports closing their doors, and when we're talking about the boxing part of it, you know what I'm saying? So here, I mean, it's some really, really devastating news, and it's something that kind of like affects a lot of parties involved, not just the people, within Showtime and Showtime Sports, but when it comes to these promotional organizations and things like that, because hey, I mean, even here with the title, when people think of Showtime Sports and they think of Showtime Boxing, they're thinking Premier Boxing Champions, Premier Boxing Champions. No, it's not just them. It's other entities or other organizations that are, part of the sport that are really affected by this. And now they got to say, hey, how am I going to feature my fighters, in front of the boxing public or in front of the boxing fans, where they get the exposure that they need in order to build their profile. Now they don't have that. This is not much different than what we dealt with when HBO Boxing closed their doors, and you had a number of those promotional organizations that had that spot in there with HBO, and once HBO closed their doors, they had to find new ways to feature their fighters. Whether it was trying to go to the zone or see if they had something within Showtime or anything outside of that. This is the same thing here in reference to a lot of the smaller promotions, so to speak. This really doesn't, at least this part here doesn't really have to deal with, like I said, with Premier Boxing Champions. But you have a lot of those smaller promotional companies that still have to make those adjustments, as far as like how they're going to feature their fighters on television if they're able to get TV dates for those fighters and the matchups there too. Now you have this whole thing here as far as like Showtime Sports consolidating all this stuff as far as like their documentaries, like with Showtime basketball and other things like that. All of that's being eliminated too. All of that's being eliminated. And you had that whole thing with inside the NFL. They had that too. So that's the thing about it. A lot of this stuff is going by the wayside. So you really have to think about how it's being shown to the public nowadays, and everything is pretty much going digital, and that it's pretty much like on demand. And so stuff like that in reference to Showtime and Paramount, they're not really all into all of that. Want to bring in one of my guys here that's been on the Boxing Source, Brother Terrell, here in the building, man. What's going on, Terrell?
Hey, what's up, JR? I definitely want to jump on this podcast. This is an important podcast for so many reasons. Just catching the tail end of what you guys covered in regards to what will be going away in terms of sports from Showtime with the proliferation of the sports division. Is shocking. But as we continue to evolve, a lot of the reasons, like you just listed, the way people consume sports, live sports, that is changing, right? That goes from any major sport, whether it be the NFL, NBA, things like that, baseball, things like that. So just the way these contracts are structured, and you just take a step back and look at the NBA, for example. Their contracts have gone crazy as far as the type of money that those basketball players get. And the only way they can get that money is by getting new deals, new streaming deals here and there, licensing fees, not only nationally, but around the world. From that point, that's what makes their salaries jump up to where a bench player now gets 15, 20 million for being on the bench. And that was never heard of back in the day. Even as recently in regards to the early 2000s, that was never heard of. A bench player gets like $1 million max, if that. So, but when you look at our sport, the sport of boxing, unregulated, fractured. That's really the best word for it. Fractured in terms of being different promotional firms, things like that. Basically, we can do what we want to do. I got my people. We ain't gonna in most cases, we won't let my people fight your people, and we want to keep all the money in house. We've seen cases of where cross promotions have come in here recently, Wilder, Fury, even recently this year, what Tank Garcia, things like that. Right? Yeah. We do see that, but we need more. We've been needing more of that, but we just haven't been getting it. But when you look at that, as far as the the promotional rivalries and stuff like that, compared to how we consume sports, it's crazy that we've come to this and everything. So it's not really a knock on boxing, I don't think, for in that regard, for just people hating on boxing and boxing's going away, which is still not going to happen. Because at this point, we know that Heyman would definitely make a deal with someone. It's just the way we consume the sport is going to change. It's going to have to evolve in that regard. So I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about how people nowadays consume, or at least watch content. Not just sports, but content overall. I mean, the thing about it is, we're on what's called the hub as far as like how people watch content. It's basically on YouTube. Like you don't really see folks get on with the cable stuff that much anymore. You know, they go on to YouTube or they go on to what's provided by the internet, basically. So you're not going to see many people consume sports or a lot of programming through just the basic network or the what they say the cable wires. So it's like now when you have that, and you also basically been dealing with a lot of the streaming stuff that goes on. So these networks and these companies have to deal with and adjust to that. So when they talk about stuff like as far as like sports is concerned, even with sports, like as popular as it is, whether it's on CBS or Fox or whatever it is, folks still stream it, So it's like they all of these companies have to deal with that, deal with that problem. But even besides that, when you have like content that only a certain demographic consistently watches, then you have to compare things to what you already have or what you regularly provide. And so when it comes to like Paramount with CBS and all that, they just say, hey, is this going to be something that we're going to continue to invest in or follow up with? And they basically made the decision that we ain't gonna do that. So that's why they're dropping all of the sports programming altogether. It's not just the thing with boxing. It's the basketball, Showtime basketball documentaries, the special shows that they have on all of that. And with that being said, that kind of like says that, well, some of these, what I would say, like sporting organizations or sporting programs, or those that kind of like produce these shows, they're gonna have to make the adjustment, and that goes the same with boxing. So with this thing here, like, yeah, a lot of folks are like shocked by the news, but like I said before you got on here, this is not much different than years ago when HBO Boxing or HBO dropped boxing. Because it's almost like they say, you know what, we're going into this transition, and we're not seeing where the benefit of having or hosting these boxing shows will make sense for us. So they just said, hey, we'll move on, um, and I kind of like broke it down in reference to boxing. Like we're not just dealing with PBC or Premier Boxing Champions. We're dealing with other organizations, other promotional companies that were trying to feature their fighters and find a way to feature their fighters and put them on television to get the exposure that these fighters need in order to generate the money or generate the revenue that their fighters are looking for. And so when you had Showbox for all these years, particularly in the last 10 years or so, this is how all of these fighters developed, not just, inside the ring, but outside the ring when it came to having a name that, fight fans will remember. So that's going to be out the window too. And, with that being said, you're going to have a lot of these, as I say, smaller or promotional organizations now have to look for another way to feature their fighters that'll be on television, So that's what I was talking about.
And real quick, so I've been a long time subscriber for HBO, right? Long time, right? And particularly mainly because of boxing, right? And a couple other shows, but mainly because of boxing, right? So now we move on. We know that HBO dropped boxing. We know that, and despite that, I still enjoy some shows on the HBO, which now HBO. So now, just recently, HBO Max now has hockey, whether it be streaming or live hockey. So when you look at that model, that's not free. They're not doing it for free. So basically, with that said, now hockey's going to get an influx in their money from having that new streaming service on that, for having their stuff on HBO's Max platform. Does boxing have that? It doesn't. It doesn't. So once again, it has to evolve. It has to change, and there's things that are going to be impacted by this. And my first thought about it whenever this whoever picks up boxing again, and somebody will, I think
Yeah.
that there's gonna be a bigger demand from that provider for bigger fights. You know, more than just send out fighting once a year or find a patsy or taxi cab driver. I think we might get more compelling matches. I think, and probably even lower purses for the fighters too in that regard. Because we know,
Hopefully.
yeah,
Continue.
yeah. But like for example, like Haney, Haney, and I'm sure you will cover that press conference. was But Haney, when he was with DAZN, right? Dude got like great money for fighting at 135. Great money when a new provider services and things like that. You really not gonna be seeing these fighters getting that type of money no more. I don't think so, unless it's on pay per view. And if it is on pay per view, that card would need to be loaded.
Yeah.
To justify that. But so, and and just one more jab real quick. Crawford, Spence too. I guarantee you that Crawford probably said, "Damn, I should have locked that in before instead of messing around. I should have locked it in instead of messing around with the weight and things like that. I should have locked it in, had it done by the end of the year to get one more big payday. That was guaranteed. I mean, it still can happen, but now it's so many things that are in question now. Crawford 2,
Right.
Tank. It's go ahead, man. Go ahead. It's so much to dissect.
Yeah. I feel you. But you kind of brought up a good point in reference to the thing with the fighters, and I think that one of the factors that isn't kind of brought in or kind of like factored in reference to this is the fighters and how much they kind of demand in reference to having their fights or going into the fight. And that is the thing that kind of like is really affecting how these boxing cards are being shown, is because the fighters in the main event, they ask for a certain type of money, and once they do that and you invest, then you pretty much already see what you need in order to break even or in order to make money. And in this particular age of, like I said, with streaming, that is very difficult to do even under pay-per-view. So you have to figure out a way to either try to break even or just say, hey, you know what? And I've had, I got Joseph Fair of World Week Radio kind of like say this. He's like saying, hey, you know what? The network execs and all them, they should say, you know what? We ain't paying you this type of money, for this fight because it's not making financial sense for us. And until, a number of these fighters, I'm just being straight up, until a number of these fighters realize that, then they're all this stuff about, they're fighting once or twice a year, and there isn't, they don't fight this day or that day, or they don't fight these certain fighters. Well, hey, as long as they ask for what they ask for, that's what's going to continue here. It doesn't matter what platform they're going to be under, So all this stuff about certain fighters fighting, once or twice a year is because of their price tag, And these networks ain't gonna bend for that. Even like the thing with DAZN, like there's been a couple of particular fighters that have been on DAZN that asked for a certain price tag and then end up fighting somebody that y'all ain't really familiar with. But when it comes to having a fight where it's a big fight, they don't even want to do that. So that's the thing, on that tip, and it's going to continue here. Now just going into, I wanted to, kind of get into this here a little bit before I go into or back to the thing with Showtime Boxing. The next big topic is, of course, what's next for PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. They've been the flagship as far as like the programming for Showtime Boxing over the past I'd say like 5 years or so, probably less than that.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that especially within this year, of course, they've had some of the most successful events in boxing for the past few years. They've been instrumental in that. Tank versus Ryan. The thing with Benavidez versus Plant. With, of course, recently Canelo versus Charlo. With Spence versus Crawford, as you mentioned there, Terrell. So all of those big events took place within this year, and that was under Premier Boxing Champions, and with in conjunction with Showtime Boxing, those have been the most successful events that we've had in 2023. So it's like, okay, what's next? There are 4 Premier Boxing Champions, or in particular for them for Heyman Boxing. We kind of like mentioned this over that it seems like it's going to be Amazon Prime. The news hasn't necessarily been dropped or official yet. There have been a number of hints here and there, from some people, but it's not like Premier Boxing Champions is quote unquote closing their doors too after Showtime Sports is out of commission. No, that wouldn't necessarily make sense, particularly when you have a few notable fighters that are under Premier Boxing Champions or under Heyman Boxing that still have things scheduled after this year. So that says, hey, I mean, they pretty much like locked down something. And it's basically a what is it, like a gag order of sorts before that actual news comes down as far as like what their new deal is going to be. Some folks say it's kind of like similar to what Premier Boxing Champions had with Fox Sports. But like I said, it remains to be seen how it's going to be laid out. But for me, I'm like this. Premier Boxing Champions is going to be fine. The fighters under Premier Boxing Champions are going to be fine in reference to who they're going to feature. The concern is going to be all of the other fighters that they don't necessarily have either the space for or the time slots for, or like in this case of Showbox, like I mentioned, like those fighters, what are they going to do there? You know what I'm saying?
Well, one thing too, like I know you heard about this news too about NBC and Peacock signing a deal with the Boxer
Yeah.
organization from overseas to
Yep.
broadcast their fights.
Yep.
And my first thought, I read that, I said, okay, but why? I mean, in Matt's words, nobody give a damn about that. I mean, honestly, the type of fighters, putting overseas fighters on a U.S. network for us to consume. Honestly, I don't care about that. I don't. As a boxing fan, even as an everyday fan, but kudos to them for getting a new deal with Peacock or whatever. But it's like even if they did that, now with this news, I wish that PBC could have them as a conduit to have their fighters on, would it be Prime and Peacock and things like that. So that's either one that would definitely drive up some subscription for both of those people and everything. But wow, it's
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I mean, the more deals, the better it would be, for them. Because the thing about it is, like I say, the bottom line is getting these fighters the fights and the fight cards for them to be, properly featured, on there. But when you have a number of these fighters that are already at a certain status, then they kind of like quote unquote demand that TV time or whatever it is. And when you don't have those slots, then that poses an issue. So it's like, are you going to feature such and such one week and then another fighter another week and this and that? Like, it doesn't quite work that way. And like I said, when you have a number of fighters that have a specific price tag, you only can do on demand or pay per view or that type of thing. So if you're going to say, for example, have a Tank Davis, a Terrence Crawford, a Canelo Alvarez, all of those fighters are going to be like pay per view. So you're gonna have that, and then what are you gonna have, outside of that with these other fighters? You know what I'm saying? So, maybe they have something structured to where they could feature more of those fighters that, don't necessarily have that hefty price tag, but you could say, hey, we could feature you on this fight card here for this week, and then have something, another week or another 2 weeks, or whatever it is, and kind of like, work it that way.
And even think about this. Think about for one, like the PBC will survive because like when we think about when Al Haven University came out of nowhere with a big tank full of money and made those deals with Fox and Showtime, things like that. That came out of nowhere because he knows how to work a deal, make a deal, and make it work. So they will find a new home. It's just a matter of who and when. We know that. But even in that regard, when we look at the top portion of the PBC, look at Canelo, for example. He just signed a 3-fight deal, I believe it was, right?
Yep.
And the type of money that demands, does that contract get adjusted with a new provider? That's a good question.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, it could get adjusted, but the thing about it is that if Heyman Boxing or PBC kind of like goes to these networks and says, hey, we had Canelo, and this is what we've done with Canelo in the past. So, even though he kind of like commands this price, you'll know that once you have him on, your network, this is how much money you're going to get from it, So that's the thing that they're kind of like banking on, is with those fighters, that they get the value, or the network will get the value for the dollar by investing in the fighters or those fights that feature those fighters. But like I said, my concern would be, how would they present, other fighters, towards, the other like shows they could possibly have, whether it's on Amazon Prime or the Zone or whatever it is. Like for the Zone, I'm like, I don't understand like how it could be, featured on the Zone, because a lot, and there's a number of cases where they would have, shows that were on Showtime, and then also shows on the Zone on the same day around the same time. So are you gonna have, these people have these different options, so to speak? I mean, that's like, how you have what, the NBA, or like, the NFL on Sundays, when you have games on two different channels, like which one are they gonna choose? So maybe the Zone could figure out a way to do that, but I just don't think the Zone would kind of make that additional investment in doing that. They already had, up to a certain point, bought out, those rights to those fights when it was on Showtime in the US. Internationally, it was on the Zone. So they already had put in, the money to kind of like cover the rights internationally. Now, are they going to do it here for the US? I'm not sure about that, because they also would have to invest in the resources in doing that. And I don't think that's in the cards for them. With it, they would have to seriously increase their budget. Do they have the money? Yeah, they most likely do, but I just don't see them kind of like putting that much money towards an extra effort in covering all of those fights and all of those fighters that would come under that Premier Boxing Champions banner. So that's why I say Amazon Prime seems like the way to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that, so with that said, it's definitely going to drop their prescription rate up if they do have PBC as their home and things like that. So, but wow, but like it just if it's crazy to think, if you're not at the top, think about all the second tier boxers sitting down in their gyms right now, thinking like, man, where in the hell are we gonna fight at? Who's gonna put us on? Who's gonna be paying out for our fights? That's a big uncertainty they're living with right now. Just
Yep, exactly. But even with that, it kind of like goes into the stuff as far as like, what some of these boxers had kind of talked about yesterday. Ryan Garcia had something to say about it. Terrence Crawford had something to say about it as well. That they say some things need to change here and there, and I'm like, well, how are you going to change it? Can you form a union? I don't see how that could be done. The other thing is, and we kind of like seen this under the Premier Boxing, well, not Premier Boxing, but with Heyman, is that they kind of like push for a number of these fighters to get a promoter's license and create a promotional company, under their name, so that they would be able to have, more money, or basically get 2 checks for their fights, right?
Yep.
But now my thing is, if the fighters really want to be more involved in the sport and kind of like control what goes on in the sport, they're going to have to invest more money into it. So when it comes to like putting up these fights, when it comes to booking these venues, when it comes to advertising costs and all that type of stuff, they would have to have, more involvement into that, not just, investing their money or trusting their money into, a management company or promotional body and saying, okay, I'll invest 20% into this thing for promotional costs. That's almost like a sponsorship to me, because you're not putting in the footwork to make everything happen from step by step by step. You're just saying, hey, you get this money, you can put this in the budget, this could help with this, promotional costs, or putting up billboards, putting up posters over here and there. Like that's kind of like what that show, or what that was to me. But if you wanted to like actually get into like putting in the application to book a venue and putting in the deposit and that type of thing, I don't know if that many fighters would want to get involved in stuff like that. So
Yeah,
that's gonna be a whole different animal.
Yeah, and just even that, and even on that, think about that. Once again, a union for boxers. Once again, the top tier boxers are already signed to whether it be Top Rank, PBC, or even people like your boy. What's your boy name? Jewish guy.
Demetrius Salita.
Leader, things like that. They have their fighters signed, and in that regard, they got their own pots of money that they deal with. So you talking about, once again, sharing, and that's what it would amount to. They would have to unionize and share. And for years, as long as boxing has been in existence, there's been promoters to have their own people signed, and they would not be inclined to want to share their fighters, share revenue, things like that. Especially with people like Aram, who's been in boxing for years, right? Old school, set in his ways. Matter of fact, who's the one that Aram made a statement about something really recently about, well, Top Rank is, we're good, we got all the money anyways. See, just that statement alone means that we're good where we're at. I got my provider with ESPN. Don't need anybody else. We good.
Right, but that's the thing though. He had the deal with ESPN. ESPN, gave him a budget, gave him, the dates where he could fit in, fights or whatever it is. But at least for me, when it comes to the thing with ESPN, I'm not all too sure if that's gonna be lasting too long, so to speak, under, or at least under the Top Rank banner. But we're gonna see. Got my guy in here with his his Kovalev avatar, man. MVO Uncensored in the building. What's happening, man?
Hey, what's good, JR? What's good, Chef Terrell?
What up, though?
Now, what you guys covered so far today?
Well, I mean, I've just, broke down a thing in reference to, the news of that Showtime Sports, but kind of like broke down when it comes to the thing with Showtime Boxing and that PBC. Yeah, PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, Heyman Boxing, they're going to be good. But
Yeah, I
what
think that'd be
about,
just fine.
the other, organizations or the other promotional bodies that were part of Showbox, the ones that had the promoters like a Dimitri Salita, or like Samson Lukowicz that could have their fighters, featured on Showbox, so that they'll be able to get fighters to have that type of exposure out there. So
They'll
now they're
probably
gonna
send them
look.
to the zone.
Well, that might have to be their move.
I mean, the zone is not exclusive to any one promoter, so
Yeah, they're not, and they made that they basically made that public, not too long ago. So they're saying, hey, I mean, if you have something where you have your fighters out here and you want to feature some shows, hey, come on over. We'll see if we could get that out there for you. And the zone is of course under Black Vanek and all that type of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, they got money and on top of money and top of money, whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
so they could do that, I don't know. I just can't wait to see what the next move is for Heyman Sports.
yeah,
So a lot of speculation. This Amazon thing, I wonder if that has legs. I'm wondering if they're going to do what they did before, like get multiple deals with multiple networks.
yeah, we kind of mentioned that here before you got on. Hopefully they could do that. Have something there with a little bit of Amazon
So it'll be
Prime. You
better.
can have something with the Zone or like Peacock, as Terrell said. Maybe have something with that because I mean, shoot, aren't they dealing? Isn't like NBC Universal like dealing with Endeavor when it comes to the WWE, and then soon they're gonna have
Yep.
UFC. So if they could have some more sports content, they could kind of like get into that business too. The
Yeah.
more
What else is interesting is even if they go to
yeah,
Amazon Prime, you see Amazon Prime has NFL games, but they're not the exclusive provider of NFL games. So
right.
even if PBC doesn't deal with Amazon Prime, does that preclude them from doing another deal with someone else? I don't think so.
Nope, not unless if they say it's an exclusive deal, then So I'd say it is like I said, why not go ahead and use other avenues because
Yeah.
you have a lot of fighters and they gonna need somewhere to fight, especially if they command like a TV date in order for them to properly be compensated. So
But it's funny, people talk about that, but one thing I haven't heard anyone talk about is what is the worth of that PBC library? They
as
have a
far as
lot of fights
that's
that they put on.
yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. Uh, but I think that's something where they just have their own, company where they just distribute it. Um,
Yeah.
Well, 646. Let me ask you a question. Do you think with these new changes, with the way that people consume sports, the way that once a new provider does arise, will boxer purses go down as from a demand by the provider, whoever that may be? No.
No, I don't think boxing purses are gonna go down because you still have pay-per-view. So for me, the big fighters are gonna either do pay-per-view or it's gonna be the original DAZN model where they get paid so much guaranteed money that they don't give a fuck what you do with their fight.
Well, even like a fight, like for example, Shakur Frank Martin. How would that play out? Who would pay for that, and how would the purses be? Like I said, just new providers. Like I'm not paying that much for a fight. We're on a strict budget, and we're not getting you a $3 million for each fighter. We're not doing that.
Yeah, but if you have a budget, how they use the budget is how they use the budget. You just gotta have quality control that approves or denies fights. I don't think say like a fight on that level is gonna get denied, but would a fight on that level be made if it's going to take from say a higher level fight like a Boots Ennis fight against like a Keith Thurman or something, which is another fight that I think is big for television, but not big enough for pay-per-view.
right. but it also goes to like what you were saying, Terrell, in reference to stuff where you talk about pay per view, and you did mention what was the thing with what's coming up with Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. Like the purses for those two fighters not only like command a pay per view, a pay per view distribution, but it also affects the undercard. And we know what the undercard's looking like for the thing on December 9th. It's like, oh boy, that ain't gonna be it. So that's another thing there that they're gonna have to consider. Will they have enough to say, hey, we could feature this event or feature this card and have the undercard be as good as it could possibly be, you know?
Yeah, because this Haney Poirier undercard is very bad. I mean, it's probably one of the worst pay-per-view cards I've ever seen. If you think about it, like,
Well, at least for this year, man. Easily for this year.
Who's the co-main on it?
Montana Love versus Liam Paro.
Wow. that says enough right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it's like all-time bad.
Yeah. So I mean, and get that in comparison to what could be playing at least for the last couple of cards there for Showtime. I mean, we got what's coming up with David Benavidez and Demetrius Andre. They have moved the fight between Shozahan Ergashev and Subriel Matias to be part of that card. And
Yeah, that probably one would be the co-feature.
yeah, that could end up being a co-feature depending on what's happening there. You got a thing with Jamal Charlo against Jose Benavidez Jr. So I mean that's going to be really good. They also have stuff coming up for December 9th. That is supposed to be a pay-per-view as well for Showtime. So and that's looking like that could be shaped up to be a very good pay-per-view card as well. So I mean, it's not like Premier Boxing Champions or Heyman Boxing is not putting up good events or good fights. It's just that these networks are just saying boxing ain't quite it. Where that feedback coming from? Oh, hold up. Oh, that's MVO. Oh man, I don't know, man. MVO got a one of those flip phones or something.
No, he's in an undisclosed location right now. The details cannot be revealed.
Details cannot be revealed. Yeah, so I mean, so that kind of like breaks down like what's happening, man. I mean, you got some folks out here that want to quote unquote celebrate the end of this or end of an era or something like that, or say that maybe PBC is done. No, they're gonna move somewhere else. But my thing is like I said, you got other organizations, other entities that have been involved with Showtime Boxing for some time now, and now all of that's going to be pretty much kaput, at the end of this year. So they got to figure out how they're going to make their moves, how they're going to adjust to what's going down in reference to this. So I'm like, hey, how are they gonna move their fighters? Are they gonna try to get in? Like NVO said, try to get something in with the zone to see if they could say house a fight card or host a fight card in a venue, and then see if the zone could be able to feature it on their platform. So I'm not sure how that's gonna go. You know what I'm saying? But you had like some fighters kind of like share their thoughts on it. You had like Eddie Hearn share his thoughts on it, saying that that's pretty much a big blow to the sport of boxing, overall, because it kind of like shortens the number of outlets or number of avenues where fight fans can watch boxing. So I mean, yeah, you could have it, move over to something like an Amazon Prime or whatever it is. But hey, I mean, folks are gonna have to, figure out a way to shift, what they're gonna do. Now with Amazon Prime, if they're able to lock in that deal, that's gonna be that'll be really big for Heyman Boxing and Premier Boxing Champions, because there's a lot of people that have Amazon Prime, a lot. So you really want to see if they're going to be able to secure something like that here in this instance, man.
And even just a small thought, just the tradition of watching boxing on HBO and Showtime is now gone. Those familiar voices, whether you like them or not, Bernstein, Raul, whatever the dude is,
Mauro Ranallo, yeah.
Those familiar voices that you whether you like them or not, that's gone now. And it's just crazy to think about that. But like I said, it's not just boxing. They're getting rid of all of their sports, whether it be the basketball, even small pockets like All the Smoke, which I enjoy all the time, gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so many people now looking for a new home. So wow, it's just shocking. Really is.
Yep. Be looking for a new home, or they're gonna, have to look for, a new line of work or something, So it's like all of the folks that kind of, are part of that type of programming, that they gotta, find something else, basically, So it's really a sad situation in reference to that. But I'd say like overall, it's like a sign of the times. When the way that folks get content is changing. So, and not only that, it's just about what's the overall demand for the product, and if these organizations or these television companies don't see the benefit in it, then they're not gonna continue to invest in it in the future. So kind of like that's how it breaks down for it. So that's what I got out of that, man. But hey, once this news comes down for Premier Boxing Champions, that's gonna be one thing. But like I said, for these other smaller organizations, the smaller promotional companies, how are they going to adjust to this news with Showtime Boxing, being out by the end of 2023? So that's what I had here, man, on this midweek report. Really not much else. I mean, I know that Terrell wanted me to kind of go into that whole thing with Haney versus Prograis, man. They tried to bring up the whole thing with Haney and what happened in Mexico. You had, what was it, the strength and conditioning coach for Regis Prograis talking a lot of trash. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that whole thing was, crazy. But
Yeah, no need for that. I mean, that press conference is the essence of boxing. That's why I love boxing. You get on the stage and talk mad shit to each other, but then the bottom line, you got to get into the ring to prove who's the man. So that's
Terrell. Let me ask you a question, Terrell.
Yeah.
You got kids, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like your kids are being raised in a better environment?
wait, hold up, what was that?
Yeah.
Well, I could barely hear her. You
Do you feel like your kids are being raised in a better environment?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Easy. Yeah. Easy. Yes. Yes.
So why?
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm not getting it either.
Yeah, I wasn't either, man. Yeah, I don't know, man. It looks like he on the delay or something. You know what I'm saying?
I don't understand like what the big deal. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, now what you got? Nope, he's still having that issue, man. I don't know, man. I guess I'll have to you revisit what you were saying on Sunday, man.
But yeah, kids are the way kids are raised now is totally different, man. It's like I look at my daughter. Every time we talk about math and stuff like that, I said, "Baby, Daddy didn't have a calculator. Daddy had a chalkboard, a notebook, and a pen. That's it. So I didn't have a computer. I have none of that. It didn't exist. I mean, just not just that. Just it's a simple. When we look, it's funny now. We're older, but we're not old. But compare that to now and then, it was a simple time. But they definitely have it easier, and that's why I don't take it easy on my daughter. From 6 years old, Daddy to be tough. Fuck that. I don't give a damn. Be tough. I'm being real. You have to, because you have to relay that to them in this soft butter.
Yeah, I don't know if MBO's on a Bluetooth or not, or whatever he's on, but yeah, today.
He's whole house.
Yeah, man. That thing is bad struggling today, man.
Hey, I can say anything I want. He can't defend himself right now, right? He cannot defend himself. Matt, where you at? Matt, where you at? How many you got? How much you pay?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can get through all that now, man. But I guess by Sunday or something like that, he'll be at a better location or whatnot to kind of like speak his piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. That's what I had here for the midweek report. Big ups to all y'all for jumping in here on this discussion. And everybody that was watching it live and on demand, you can hit the like button on your way out here to support the Boxing Source. But we're gonna be right back at it on Sunday to kind of like talk about more news in the sport of boxing. Didn't really see what's out there as far as like anything on the schedule, man. Looks like most of the stuff is next week when you had a whole thing with Tyson Fury and whatnot. But there's some action here and there that's going down on the zone, so we'll be able to catch the action that's on the zone on Saturday. And of course, you got Pro Box TV that's going down right now, so y'all could catch that as well. But that's it for the midweek report. Big ups to everybody to join in, and I'll catch y'all later.
Later. Well.